So we're living in a country where even the best entertainment, the most slick marketing is now being thrown to the wolves in order to satisfy political agendas that have nothing to do with the product. And I'm talking specifically about the entertainment industry, not so much with consumer products. I think people will always continue to buy consumer products based on whether they like it or not. You're not going to see people buying Swiffer, Swiffer pads or OxyClean because of diversity. It just doesn't make any sense. Marketing will always remain marketing, and there's nothing you can do. What happens is when they start doing the pandering in the marketing, the people that are being targeted get a huge they get huge cues off of it, and often they react to it negatively. Well, one of the funniest ones was Champagne, which was like the champagne for the price of beer. Champagne taste for the price of beer. That was a product back in I think it was the 70s, and they actually put black people on the marketing merchandise and the ad copy, and within a few years it was just shown to be condescending and a little patronizing, that black people would be poor, therefore they would want cheap quote unquote champagne. I think what we're seeing with ESPN and Comedy Central, which are two networks among many, I think AMC is now coming out with a series, I think, that's based on Black Lives Matter. And you see Netflix as well, which is, they're supposed to be on the cutting edge, and they're buying into this diversity crap. Look, there's nothing wrong with having diversity in its proper context. If there are certain comedians, comedians can, Kevin Hart, for example, amazing comedian, but his talent is what got him to where he is, not the color of his skin. And instead, you are seeing industries that are being they're basically bowing down to a new set of values that don't match with their audiences. Now, I'm not saying this for every entertainment sector. Obviously, if you go on to the TV menu, I don't even have a TV anymore, so I can't even speak for whether there are new channels I don't know about or old ones that are gone. But TBS, for example, for a long time they were doing the Tyler Perry crap. Not that I hate Tyler Perry, I just think his movies suck. They were having these movies that were basically in-house. They catered to a certain group of people within the black community, mostly, that they had the same type of sense of humor, and they were successful for that. And there were, I think there were a number of shows that developed out of that, like Blackish and Meet the Browns, and this was the corporate media buying into diversity. That was what TBS did, and that's what the George Lopez show was. He had his late night show where it was basically Conan O'Brien but Mexican. That's basically what it was. And unfortunately, not everything is like TBS. You can't just, okay, so there's a certain amount of people that will enjoy their sitcoms to be a little more racially oriented, like Blackish is, or some of these other shows. But, and I don't care if people want to watch those shows, watch those shows. I personally don't see the point of emphasizing race in everything. I think it actually narrows to some degree the appeal of it, because at a certain point people get tired of it, just like with every other theme. If you had shows that were all about girl power, did Powerpuff Girls stay on the air forever? Not really. It was a great gimmick while it lasted, the whole girl power thing, but it didn't last. I mean, it lasted for what? I think a good 10 years. That's a good shot. It had a good run. That's what they usually say. In entertainment, you have to remember to give people the product that they're tuning in to watch. And when you have something like what Jamel Hill did this week with Donald Trump lambasting him and calling him a white supremacist on Twitter, and arguing with people. Okay, so yes, she's a member of the media, so she has a little accountability to ESPN, but she's an independent agent. I mean, she's allowed to have her own opinions. That's what I would think. But there's other people from ESPN who got fired for much less. Kurt Schilling got fired for sharing a meme that was could be construed as being transphobic. I have here from Outkick the Coverage, fantastic site. I'll share it. ESPN suspended Lynn Cohn and let Jamel Hill slide. Where was this? I didn't even know about this Linda Cohn story. What was it that she did? Okay, so all she did was said last night Outkick broke the news that Linda Cohn, one of the most respected women to ever work at ESPN, and she is pretty good, by the way. I think Linda Cohn is one of the best careers of many of these female sports. Well, even anybody at ESPN in general. I think she's one of the top stars. You don't think about her much because she's not that colorful, but she's really just as a reporter. Was called and told by ESPN president John Skipper not to come to work after she went on the radio in New York City this past April and said as follows: they definitely overpaid for many of these products, whether it's the NBA or starting up networks like the Pac-12 network and SEC network. She said on WABC's Bernie and Sid show, it's well documented. They also did not see that they would lose all these subscribers to competitors like Netflix. But it was more than just that. Politics played a part, as did the network's move away from strictly covering sports. I felt that the old school viewers were put in a corner and not appreciated with all these other changes, and they forgot their core. You can never forget your core and be grateful for your core group. And that she's basically saying what I'm saying. I kind of focused on the product. I said, you have to deliver the product that people are tuning in for. She was saying that you have to remember the core audience that you're going for. It's the same idea. I'm focusing on the product. She's focusing on the audience. So, you got Linda Cohn, as veteran as it gets, and she's calling it right, and they suspend her. And then there's this Jamel Hill, who, she's kind of. I'll tell you why ESPN is not suspending her. They've so overcommitted now to this Rainbow Nation concept of what their job is, to celebrate diversity and inject politics into everything, that they've almost lost the majority of the audience that they used to have. And all they have are these wusses that tune into that garbage. Well, Jamel Hill's show, I mean, I've never watched it, but I've seen other shows on ESPN that are basically social commentary, or they're full of nothings and prognostications and anything. I think that one show that's politically motivated would be fine for ESPN. They could have it for an hour every day. But they have a number of shows like that. And of course, they have Outside the Lines, which is a good investigative reporting show. And they have E60, I think. I think they still do that. And they do 30 for 30, which is a fantastic series. And those are enough, by the way. Those are great. I love the 30 for 30 series. I think that when they came out with that was a great addition to the portfolio of ESPN going into documentary films. What they slipped up on was this decision to start preaching to their audience, preaching to them about stuff that had nothing to do with why they were tuning in. And that's not just ESPN. But by the way, I saw this start to swing in this way. A couple years ago, I think it was 2015 or 2014, when Michael Sam got drafted, and it wasn't with ESPN, it was with CBS Sports Radio. And they have a host named Amy Lawrence, who she broke the news that he'd been drafted by the St. Louis Rams. At the time, they were the St. Louis Rams. And she said, I'm going to open up the phone lines. People can react, but I don't want to hear any ugly reactions, anybody calling him out, anybody saying that he shouldn't be accepted or anything. And my thought when I heard her put all these preconditions of people to call was that this is somebody who wants to hear only one viewpoint, who wants the conversation to be modulated to her liking. And that's not what talk radio is about. People, there are a number of rules, FCC rules, obviously. Maybe some hosts will impose, a certain amount of decorum on it, or they'll trash talk with their guest. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about somebody saying, well, I only want people with a certain opinion calling in. I want to hear what you have to say, but I don't want you to think in a certain way that I don't agree with. And that was a major, that was a lightning bolt moment for me. I wasn't politically active at the time. I wasn't even motivated. I didn't, Michael Sam was drafted. I was like, what? I mean, and I'm not a gay rights person. I don't support it. But I said, this is something. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not on the team. What do I care? It's really Michael Sam's problem, or it's really the Rams' problem, whatever they want to do. But what she did was she made it beyond Michael Sam. From Michael Sam's standpoint, he probably has faced plenty of people who criticized him over being a gay guy. But what this injected into it was that there were media outlets that were running interference for him. They were basically saying, yeah, we think that people should think a certain way about this, and that's final. We don't want anybody to bring in their own bigoted, intolerant nonsense when talking about Michael Sam. And then they went a step further and they declared him to be the modern Jackie Robinson, or that I think they did that to Jason Collins, the gay guy in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, yeah, I think what they did was a pretty ballsy move, pardon the pun, but but that's not Jackie Robinson. You have to understand, when he went into into Major League Baseball, first of all, he was the challenges that these people faced were nothing compared to somebody who had to travel to St. Louis, where it was segregated, and get called words all day, all sorts of cruel and vindictive epithets all day from drunk fans, and that's just not the same thing with Michael Sam or Jason Collins. Those were guys, and the league, the National League. I mean, for one thing, there were people within the league at the time that were saying, no, we can't let a black person play in this league. It's just it's gonna scare all our fans away. I think that was a different time, and that was a different condition. And if Michael Sam would have entered the league without as much fanfare, no, I don't think it really would have been that big of an issue. And that's certainly, that's now a hypothetical, but I definitely don't think he's worthy of being mentioned anywhere near the legacy of Jackie Robinson, just because he happened to be the first gay person to be drafted into the NFL. He never even made a roster. The question is whether that had to do with if he was capable of playing in the NFL, or, as some people think, was it this blacklist? Was it teams saying, oh, we don't need this thing with the fans, or they were simply homophobic? I don't think it was the case. I think that a lot of these teams decided, especially the ones that had him on their team for a short time, Dallas and St. Louis, they said, you know what, this guy, he's not as much of a talent as somebody who would stay on our roster. Or they said, well, for the talent that he has, he's not worth the attention, which is wrong. I think that that would be wrong. I think if he's worth the talent, give him at least a chance to play a few games and then release him. They didn't do that, and I think Michael Sam has a legitimate gripe about that. The unfortunate truth is that since then there's been the Kaepernick issue, and there have been all these other issues where the NFL and other sports have become political. There was the I think it was the Adam Jones racial slur incident in Boston this year. The ESPN is addicted to race and other identity politics, whether it's the race, it's gender identity, sexual orientation. They are addicted to it. It's their blood. And Jason Whitlock's commented about it. Jason Whitlock now works at Fox Sports 1. He has some interesting views. The Kaepernick case is retarded. These commentators, just think about it. They don't care about the fact that the St. Louis Rams skipped town on their city and became the LA Rams. They don't care about that because they don't care about the average fan. What they really care about are these icons of their leftist ideology. And I think that that's really one of the reasons that people are tuning out. Why would I, who used to buy season tickets to the St. Louis Rams for how many years it was, keep watching the NFL or ESPN or whatever it is, if they don't back me up? They're not backing me up. I'm the fan. I need people. I paid taxpayer money in St. Louis. This isn't me, but I'm putting myself in their shoes. I've been paying taxpayer money in the city of St. Louis for years in order to provide a venue for an NFL team, and they leave. That is really the issue here, and they're not going to tune in to watch the same network that let their team go with hardly a whimper. Okay, and the same goes for San Diego. The same is going to be for Oakland next year. The NFL, the ESPN did virtually nothing to help the case of these cities that are trying to keep their teams. Not that I think that there's a profitable way of doing that. I think these NFL teams are a huge waste of money. But that's not the point. These people feel abandoned. The same thing I could tell you with some of these networks like Comedy Central. But not as bad as ESPN. Comedy Central, they have a number of comedians. I think they have one that's exclusively focused on Donald Trump. I forgot his name. And then they have Jim Jeffries, who's also pretty close to that, who I used to find to be an amazing comedian. He was hilarious, always off color, very vulgar, just total free speech maniac. And now he's bought into this whole Trump Russia crap. Or maybe he's just doing it for show, and he's producing a show on Comedy Central. I'm not even going to mention the name because I don't remember. And even if I did, I don't want to have his show promoted. It's mostly about ways to prove that Donald Trump is racist, or that he's a dictator or whatever. Listen, if this society was in that much danger from one person, these people wouldn't be speaking out as strongly as they do. They would probably be, seeking asylum somewhere else and speaking from there, and they don't do it. And Jim Jeffries is an Australian immigrant. So, getting to the motivation behind this, a lot of people do think, and with that I'm going to close, there are people that do think that Comedy Central and ESPN, they're doing this from a political motivation. I think some of them are, and I think that the hosts are doing it by political motivation. I think that depends on who you're talking about. With Max Kellerman, who's the sidekick or the you know, the jail-yard bitch for Stephen A. Smith, basically, those two idiots, Smith, and they have that one Will Kane guy who's the only normal person on that show. First Take is a garbage show. It wasn't that good with Skip Bayless on it, but that at least gave you a reason to watch. Instead, now you have this retard Max Kellerman, who's an ideological, you know, he's basically a pencil lead. He's one dimensional. He's one dimensional, really. Yeah, Max Kellerman, all the time, just talking about social justice and garbage like that and diversity. Look, if you want diversity so bad, give your fucking job to Dan Levitard, who's a Cuban, and go home, because there's too many of you on TV, of white men, of white Jewish men, and I say that as a Jewish person. There's an inordinate amount of Jewish people on ESPN. Now, am I going to say that they should all get fired? No, because I think some of them are there for a reason. They were able to do it through strength of personality. Some of them are not. And I think Max Kellerman is an example of one. I don't know how he got on TV. The man is a joke. He's a walking joke. So I think some of them are dedicated ideologues like Max Kellerman, and then I think some of them are basically cashing in. You know, that you can get a free show from a network, all for bashing Trump, because these networks are delusional. They think that people are going to watch their show just because it's against Trump. Well, how many shows are there already? Just look at Comedy Central and its spin-offs for The Daily Show, or you know, the ones that are on other shows, on other channels that are spin-offs of The Daily Show or the same format. The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, not nearly as popular as it was under Jon Stewart. The Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore was canceled. Then you have Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. I think that will eventually get canceled. And of course, you have John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, which is very successful, possibly more successful than The Daily Show. Look, I'm not going to tell you not to watch these shows, but there are just too many of them. That's 4 or 5 shows that I remember already. Let's see, there's Noah, Wilmore, Oliver, and B. Okay, so there's 4 shows. They have the exact same format, and I think that in to some degree they're at the same time. Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't have enough time to watch all 4 of those shows. One of those people is going to get canceled. That was already Larry Wilmore. Pretty soon, if they can't really jog the ratings, well, one of the other ones is going to get canceled. It's not going to be John Oliver. But yeah, they ruin comedy. They ruin sports. Yeah, Jim Jeffries used to be one of my favorite comedians. Incredibly vulgar guy. Just would say stuff that would make, you know, it would make an ogre blush. And he fucked up. He committed to this political garbage. I think that he believes some of it, but some of it just made up crap. And I think that Comedy Central and ESPN, they're suffering because of this, but their parent companies don't have to worry about it. They're rich enough that they don't have to worry for the time being about any consequences from this. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on comedy, sports, in terms of the diversity issue. There was on ESPN, they hired this, I think his name was Sergio Dope or Dop, who looked like a dope this weekend on Monday night, and one of the most ridiculous sideline commentaries I've ever seen. Yeah, I think that if you have these diversity hires, I don't know if he was one, but I'm just saying, if you have some of these diversity hires and everything is about race and background, then eventually you're going to ruin your product permanently. So that's it. I'm Ramon Bull, like a leopard. Comment below, share this video, and you know, let me know what you think. Do you think that they've gone too far, and do you think that they'll be able to come back from it?